Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Catherine O'Brien. I think I'm being blocked by John, but that's okay. You don't need to see me.
Yeah.
My name is Catherine O'Brien, and I'm the chair of the Agricultural Commission, and we have in attendance today Eva Chapman.
John McTow.
And today we're going to call the meeting to order and discuss a few items that have been ongoing for the last couple of meetings. One of the things that we are going to discuss is the protocol in whether or not we are to take on the responsibility of a nuisance rooster or pet. And so we discovered just now that we had not received anything from the Board of Selectmen regarding the rooster issue over on Montgomery Park. So we are going to just put that to one side now until we get the letter, if we get the letter, and just move on with a couple of other items that we're going to discuss. And first and foremost, we're looking at the right to farm disclosure bylaw form in the bylaw, which talks about the fact that we are a right to farm town, and that that was incorporated to make sure that everyone that had farms weren't put out of business by new people coming in and complaining about certain farm techniques, odors, dust, whatever. So that's a good thing. Now, we are not discussing the particular rooster that was brought to our attention a couple weeks ago. We're discussing, in general, what could be added to the right to farm disclosure to include a nuisance pet. So, John, here's what I just put together. The first page is the current right to farm bylaw disclosure. And I did a little editing on it. As you can see, in the middle, we would insert, I said rooster information, but it would really be a nuisance pet information. And I also edited the second paragraph there, and the reason for it is, and you'll know, John, without me even telling you, it states that.
So what happened was that,
Excuse me, we're taking a break.
Okay, no, that's all right.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
I believe that Sam Jocelyn put something about a rooster bylaw, proposed it, and it was shot down.
Yeah.
So this was in response to that.
Okay, I remember that, but
But
supposedly,
here's the letter that she wrote.
okay,
okay.
that's what we're looking for. Alrighty.
Thank you.
Alrighty, thanks.
You're welcome.
So we're gonna go right back to that in just a second.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
look at that second on the agenda. So anyway, let me just read the way it was stated. This right to farm disclosure notification was presented to the prospective buyer or occupant by the undersigned not later than 21 days after the purchase and sales contract was entered into, or prior to the sale or exchange of real property, if not purchased, if no purchase or sales agreement exists, for the purchase or exchange of real property. And skipping down, in all circumstances, this disclosure notification must be presented to the grantee prior to the recording of any deed or any other instrument of conveyance of real property interest. Now, I know you're gonna say it's too late after we sign the P&S.
You know, I've had to do them, you've had to do them, and after the closing, the deed's recorded, I make sure, or after I sign the lease and I get the person to sign it,
Yeah,
I run it over and drop it off here.
me too.
And it's
I thought I was the only one.
Oh, no, and someday, I may not volunteer, see if I can get my senior tax break and put hours in and go through them all and see, because if we could justify, I see how you put violators would be the realtor.
It could be.
And that's
Because-
all legal, getting legal, that we could, that if we track down, there's probably 10-20% of real estate agents, sellers, renters that have not done this, and can we really enforce it? Yeah, it'd be
Well-
something to look
It'd be
into.
interesting.
Yeah, I've always tried to figure out what's the best way, and I think the easiest one is either a week after recording a deed or something like that, because it's up to the realtor to say you gotta sign it prior to purchase and sale, but we need to get it back, in case the sale falls through or something, after, somewhere in there.
Well, I understand, but I was thinking about, the lead paint law.
Right.
The lead paint disclosure is supposed to be signed before
Purchasing.
contract of purchase and sales is
Yep.
signed. And the reason is that some people would not buy a house if it had lead paint.
Right.
I think of this the same way. Some people might not buy the house if they hear that this is a farm
Right.
community, there could be odors and dust and blah. They may just say, oh, I don't want any part of that, I'm coming from Cambridge.
Yep.
So
Prior to purchase?
Or,
Yeah.
I think it has to be presented up front to give them enough time to
Yeah.
say, whoa, we don't want that.
Yeah.
We don't wanna move it. Giving it to them after the fact is like saying, oh, by the way, the house is lead paint.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just got to be shown up front. So that's
Right.
the only reason I changed that.
Yeah.
And that's just a minor thing that the
Yeah.
selectmen will take into consideration.
And I think that, all of these have to go before Lisa anyways.
Yes,
And that would be the
absolutely.
one there on, and that would be something, like I say, is, who is the violator?
Well, that's my question.
Yeah,
I suppose.
on a
if-
rental, is it the landlord, the owner?
Now,
Is it the seller for sale by owner, I'd say
oh,
it is?
yes, I would say
Yeah,
we sell
same
them.
as,
However, the realtor is the representative of the seller.
right, yeah, oh yeah, no, that's it there, it should be in the office, yeah.
It should be, let me put it this way, I don't think anyone is gonna track anything down. I think the whole point of this is if somebody raises a stink.
Yeah.
You're out haying, they don't like the way the wind is blowing, the dust is getting into their barbecue.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, no.
They,
And then they can go back after that realtor.
or owner,
Yeah.
yeah, and say, we don't find a right to
Yeah,
farm
you didn't.
disclosure for you.
Yeah.
You didn't just, so then, the liability is on the seller or
Right.
the realtor.
Yeah,
Not us, not
Yeah.
the town.
because I've always thought is, just dropping them off, how many people do it, they're sitting at files in people's office, because I know a lot of them are doing it. Because it is, every office says, when you pull up Newbury, it's there,
That's right.
yeah, so
That's
it's
right.
there, so, yeah,
And it is not unusual for realtors to sometimes just do the basics.
oh yeah,
But it is, if you sell in Newbury, or you sell in Newburyport, or you sell in Georgetown, you really should know what you
Right.
need.
yeah,
You wouldn't be a good representative for anybody if you didn't know
No.
what was necessary, so. So that was just my thought for you to think about, we can discuss it again.
no, I think because when do we have to have this in?
Well, we don't have to have it any particular time.
No, doesn't this have to be changed at the town meeting?
Yes,
So we,
so that, it is this week. I
Right.
have to go down and ask Leslie, she didn't give me, she wasn't there,
Right.
and the woman that was there didn't know the exact date, but it's like soon. So, you can make any motion you would like to make.
I just don't, everything that's up above, do we actually want to insert nuisance? See, they haven't come up with that yet, that's a new thing.
Well, we can.
But I mean, do we wanna, because all we're saying, we're just talking about farms. This is all we're talking about. Somebody else has got a pet, a pet rooster. It doesn't even, because somebody's buying this, if somebody's got like Linda has a rooster next door, and said, well, it wasn't on there. I mean, are we getting into too much of changing this and adding something about nuisance animals when we're talking about noise, dust, and odors.
Yeah. Well, we got noise and odors.
And dust, right, if that's dust.
We got the trifecta.
Right, so I mean, we're singling out one animal or putting the word nuisance in there. do we wanna incorporate it with our bylaw right now to say, and then if the selectmen wanna do something, cause there already is within the town zoning about nuisance dogs.
Okay,
So they wanna change that, that's where Damon wanted to come in, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Is to change that to nuisance animals, we wanna change that if they're gonna upgrade it to instead of saying dogs, our suggestion would be to change it to nuisance pets. And let it be there and not put anything else on this here.
oh, that's a good point,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point,
So
Yes,
all we
okay.
want, yeah, so I think all we wanna add to this is changing the wording on how it goes.
yeah,
We can send it to Lisa to see about violators, so that we can explicitly say who's gonna be charged if they don't do it. And then we wanna add the definition of a farm, where you gotta insert roosters.
yes, and that's addendum 1, and then I wrote addendum 2 because I thought maybe we wanted to be more specific just with roosters, but addendum 1 says a farm is defined as an area of land which may, but is not required to, qualify for chapter 61A as put forth by Mass General Law, chapter 61A. And then I put tracts of land which do not qualify for chapter 61A are not covered by the existing bylaw and may not keep farm animals on their property if they violate the constitutional provision of their neighbors to quiet enjoyment of one's property. Special consideration for keeping farm animals on one of these tracts of land can be made in writing to the Board of Selectmen in advance of acquiring the animal. Landowners who currently have farm animals in an area not qualified for consideration under chapter 61A are grandfathered and may keep their animals as long as there are no legitimate and substantiated complaints from neighbors. Once a valid complaint has been lodged with the AgCom and the animal is deemed a nuisance, that would come from the selectmen, to the neighborhood, the owner of the animal will have 3 days to remove the animal from the site, and the Board of Selectmen. I just put 3 days, it could be anything.
Yeah.
Now, that was one thought, and it's pretty specific. It doesn't say anything about roosters, but it's fairly specific. It's what we talked about last week. Now, the second one I did was specifically about roosters. Roosters are farm animals used for reproductive process of chickens. Farm is defined in the Massachusetts General Law, chapter 61A. Anyone keeping a rooster as a pet is not covered by this bylaw. I'm just gonna leave it at that, but then I added, if you do not qualify as a farm according to Mass General Law, chapter 61A, and if you are keeping a rooster as a pet, which is disrupting the quiet enjoyment of neighbors, as evidenced by legitimate and substantiated complaints, you will be asked to remove the rooster within 3 days. Fines to be determined. So those are the two, and they're different in that the second one is specifically roosters. And, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. We've never had any complaints about any other animals except roosters. Well, Mindy, but that doesn't count.
Right.
Roosters are the only concerns we've had.
Someone dumped one on Low Street over the weekend.
Oh, great.
It was on Facebook.
Yeah.
White log, on a log.
Leghorn.
Leghorn,
Yeah.
yeah, white one.
Really?
Right down the street.
Well, you know, I think it's the same thing like John said last week. They sell these baseline chicks
Yep.
at, you know, any place, and then they find out that they've got roosters in amongst the hens, and they don't want them. So,
Or they developed to love them and don't want to
Yeah.
get rid of them.
well, yes, that's the other piece too.
Okay.
So go
And
ahead.
that's the kid, I wanna say the kids growing up nowadays, we were growing up with that if you have chickens, you have roosters, they're dinner tomorrow night.
Right.
Okay.
Buckeye.
My opinion on addendum 1.
Yep.
Everything good until once a valid complaint. This is
Okay.
going,
Valid, yeah.
yeah, well, even that, once, this is going into, through the town meeting, to get put into our right to farm official bylaws.
Yep.
I think once we put in, if we're put in, once a complaint has been lodged with it, it gets back into did the selectmen get the complaint, they call us, did the Board of Health get, I don't think we need that in there.
Good point.
You know, up until there, to
Yep.
the complaints from neighbors, and then just leave it at that. That's what I would say, would like to see changed to a farm defined, and then that's it there.
I think that's a smart idea to take that once, okay, I toyed with that, I
Oh,
was like,
no, that's, yeah, and then,
yeah, no, I think that's a good, that's good.
and number two, you know where instead of putting it, that gets back to the same thing is you're
Oh,
putting
yeah,
it,
yeah,
I'd like to see that, and then how we get that on, added to our little farming brochure and onto the website, like Raleigh did it.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
so we're
yes,
basically either strongly, yeah, you know, how Raleigh did it, they said,
Yes,
we
yes.
strongly don't suggest getting roosters, but something on that idea, that this goes into that.
Right,
Well, we have ours.
right.
Yeah, how do
I don't
they
have
say?
one of ours. We're all just-
Strongly discourages.
yes,
Yeah.
strongly discouraged.
Yep, so if we could add that to our little pamphlet,
Yeah,
or whatever, and on the website with our, whatever we wanna call it.
website, I think actually, this is crazy, I think we should make a website with all of us here holding one of our animals.
Oh, Jesus.
Don't you think that that would give it authority and validate
Oh,
that we
yeah.
really do know what we're talking
Yeah.
about?
We got a cage for
Yeah.
roosters though.
All right, I didn't get any motions on that idea, so we'll move on then.
Does that sound like that's a good idea for that one?
Yes,
Yeah.
do you
Yes,
think
it
so?
does, I think so.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Eva, why don't you make a motion on both of them?
We'll make a motion on amendment 1 to accept.
Motion seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Eva?
And the second amendment, I would make a motion to include that onto our brochure and the website.
Second that motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, that was easy.
Okay, do we need a motion to also change our Town of Newbury right to farm disclosure notice? We wanna update the, notification.
I think we probably do.
Yes, cause we're gonna look at, talking with legal and looking at updating that. So I make a motion that we're gonna look at updating the right to farm disclosure notification that realtors and landlords are supposed to give to potential buyers and tenants.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay, well, that really was a pretty quick meeting, wasn't it? Do any of you have anything else that you'd like to discuss?
Okay, here is the letter that was sent to the selectmen from Sue Becker, even though we're basically talking about on 8/19. Okay,
I'm responding to the recent comments in the Daily News article.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that article.
I'm not familiar with the article either. Did she write it or, I don't know.
well, supposedly there was something about, that they talked at a meeting about it,
Oh, all right.
okay. See, okay, so this never says that she called the police or anything like that, so it's just. And I just don't understand why, reading this letter, that it was to invite Damon and any board to sit there without the whole board or whatever. She's talked with him directly,
Yeah,
not sure,
maybe she,
yeah.
knows him or something.
And we just never received this.
No.
Yeah.
I wonder if Mr. Jesperson passed it along to the selectmen to make a.
Well, this,
motion on it.
supposedly this got read at a meeting.
Okay.
I saw one of the, I get whenever there's a Board of Selectmen's meeting, the agenda, and there was one on the correspondence, a letter from Susan Becker. So they did get read during one of the meetings, it must have been, this May 8th one.
So we don't know if the selectmen made any,
No
had
idea.
any discussion or
Yeah,
anything like
no idea,
I
or
think we
could
better
check it,
check the minutes.
yeah.
that. Yes,
To go on something like that, so that's basically it there, so on that note,
yes.
complaints about any farm animal per se. I think first we should define, is it a farm animal or is it a rooster? And is, a pet rooster, and whose responsibility is it to look into it?
Good point.
You know, on something like that, and how we go about that is do one of us have to go sit at a selectmen's meeting and bring it up, or I have no idea on what the protocol is when you get a phone call from somebody
Yeah,
saying that there's a crowing rooster at 5 o'clock in the morning, what do we do? I know, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd be calling the police, but
Right.
where do we go from there as the
Okay.
agricultural commission?
well, I think that where we would go would be to refer them to the selectmen, because we would have to get direction from the selectmen
That's
as to what to do about it.
right,
So it's a pretty simple answer now. You
Right.
just, hello, Catherine, I've got a crowing rooster. Oh, I have the solution for you. Just call the selectmen and we'll be happy to get involved if that's their decision.
and sounds great to me, but we gotta let them know.
Yes, we do.
I think that's,
So now that means, what's the direct line to the selectmen to let them know that? Is there a direct line or?
I'm not sure, you're on the,
Yeah, well, we have to address them.
I mean, does the chair go to one of the meetings and put it
The
on?
letter would be,
Yeah, I think maybe just
Okay.
putting it into
Put it
a
in the
letter.
letter.
I
to
put
start,
it, let's,
if they want us to address them, we can always do that too, but to start, I would, they might have a solution via letter.
okay,
Okay. We've got a form letter for roosters.
I
Yeah.
really don't think they're gonna wanna be bothered. That's why
Well, I
the
think-
new bylaw will hopefully eliminate.
Okay.
A letter would serve as us
Right.
approaching them anyways.
yeah.
Yes, it
Because
definitely.
you have to send them this one,
Yes,
and I think we could do
Yes.
it all in the same package on, that they get this on the roosters, the changing of it, and then another one is, you know, not a chain of command, but more or less a little bit more of a direction on what happens when complaints come in. If a complaint comes into the police department, they can contact us. A complaint comes into the selectmen, they can contact us. But if we get a complaint, are we authorized to go look at the complaint, or do we have to say, talk to the selectmen, and that's what I'm,
well, this kind of brings me back to the discussion we had last week on the fact that we are an advisory
board.
commission.
Right,
And the definition of an advisory board is an informal group of local business professionals who can help you run your business or
or the town,
the town.
Yep.
So, it basically goes on to say that it can be structured to help with direct operation or to keep you informed. But there's nothing that says that the advisory board has any authority to make any decisions. We can suggest, we can make our recommendations, but it's pretty clear that it's just the bidding of the selectmen or the police or whoever it is that,
so the way the world is nowadays,
yes,
somebody calls up and says, I got a complaint about next door neighbor's bull. Runs along the fence and I'm intimidated by it.
Yeah.
They call you and you decide to go over and check there. Do you have authority to go over and go to that bull and check it without a directive from the selectmen?
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't either. You know, so when
No,
we're
and I
looking
think-
at these complaints, if we're not getting a direction from the selectmen, are we, are we wasting our time? Because
Yeah.
we don't have any authority to do anything unless we get, the selectmen can't handle it?
Good question.
And being a new board, even though we've been around for 3-4 years, it's,
We haven't had that many issues.
right, and to come up on something like this last one to try to figure out is whose responsibility is it? We assumed, which, you know what happens when you assume,
Yes, I do.
that there were all sorts of complaints and everything going in,
Yep,
and then we come to find out there's not, so are we upsetting people that don't need to be upset, per se?
right, right.
The complaintee, because we're not fixing what she's complaining about, or the person that's getting the complaint, we're upsetting her, thinking there's complaints and there's not, you know, it's both sides of the story, so we're in the middle of,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and,
He said, she said, yeah.
yeah,
exactly, and, you know, I was thinking, for the years that we've been doing this, I think I can only remember 3 rooster complaints.
yeah, they've been few and far between.
And we've had no complaints about any other animals.
No.
Bulls or otherwise.
Now, on this one here, when we talked about this last one here, and we talked about it last couple meetings,
Yeah,
when you just said complaints, are they valid complaints?
Right. I think we need those complaints before we can address.
Right, yeah,
I
anything,
agree.
and then a directive from the selectmen. Where this is being taped, hopefully, we can mention, or somehow, they will look at it to a certain extent, and,
Well,
sure.
even if it just goes through them and they pass it on to us,
right.
it's
Yeah.
gone
Yeah.
through them first.
But they understand where we're at. I mean, still you writing a letter, but at least they'll understand where we're at to try to, you know,
So in addition to the letter that we just looked, that we just went over,
right, yeah, that one there that talks about explicitly the rooster and,
yes,
yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
Do you wanna make a motion on that, or did we already do that?
I think we already might have done that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the first, well, we might have not. This is to make a motion to, send the letter addressed to the Board of Selectmen that does a general on the rooster discussion that we've had over the last couple of weeks. That it's not a farm animal, and it's being kept as a pet.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye,
Okay, so that's just a general explanation of what we've done regarding that.
yeah,
So the second letter will be asking for direction. I.e., who should the initial complaint be directed to? Ending it with a England participle, that's my good. Directed to. Anyway, so that's what we're gonna ask in the second letter.
it could,
How do we,
right, and it
What's-
could be you get a complaint, but before we do anything on it, it gets passed on, or you have to talk with, whether it's JR as the chair, or someone to say, look, I got this complaint, we wanna look into it, because by rights, granted, it's all public information,
Yeah.
but I went down, I called you before I went down to see the chief to say,
Yeah.
is it okay if I go down there, because I don't wanna just go down there and,
yeah,
but we could be starting looking into something that none of our business, putting it mildly,
right,
yeah,
that's right,
uh,
yeah, so we need some authorization.
right,
And if the complainant has to address the selectmen, they may think twice.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more
They may.
tolerant.
Yeah.
Or may be more open to other solutions before they go that far.
Well, you know, I think that, getting back to the Rosie, they were open to solutions. They weren't in the beginning. They were both
Right.
adamant, they were really angry. But then, you know, the longer it went on and talked a little bit more and
Rosie tried her
she
best.
really did.
Yeah.
She did because she didn't feel like she had to be defensive anymore.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, I think we're well beyond that with the Montgomery Park people.
Yeah, it's,
That's like well beyond that.
that button heads, you know, when I talked with Linda and she basically said, I'm not getting rid of her, let her take me to court. That's right then and there, you know, there's nothing we can do.
And the, I forget their names, that had the young boy with the roosters for a school project. They went to court too.
Yeah.
And I spoke with the woman, I believe she said that there was no decision really. It was
Yeah.
just work it out.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
that time, money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they basically just said, work it out.
Right.
So, you know?
Yep.
One of them might decide to move, I don't know. You never know. The guy that did call that one time about, you know, he's got the house across the street from the gas station right up there on Hanover Street, the old one that's really lovely and redone and everything. The house next to him is a Cape, and he called and he was just out of his mind because he could not sleep, he couldn't use the bedroom at the end because this guy had a rooster and, you know.
Oh, you're talking on Parker Street?
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
yeah, the
Parker
lot-
Street,
Yeah,
yeah.
that never went anywhere, but did the rooster
No.
get eaten by the?
Well, no, I'll tell you why.
He burned down?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, but he's got more, but I don't think he has a rooster.
No, he doesn't,
Yeah.
'cause I looked.
Yeah,
Okay, well, what happened was, I asked the gentleman that was making the complaint to come to a meeting,
right,
and he didn't show.
and they weren't even about us, there was a house in between
Oh,
them.
there was,
Yeah,
okay,
there was a
fine.
house in between them,
Okay.
yeah, that's the same with, up at the park, there's a house actually in between.
Yep.
Okay,
And I think the other thing too, listening to that, you know, the lawsuit that was, they just said, work it out yourself. I think that, you know, there are some things that there is no solution for, and basically, we would have to say, you gotta work it out for yourself. You gotta learn to get along, because it is just the people, not the pets.
okay.
And it would be easier if there was more than one person complaining, it would make it a little easier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would.
And that's what,
It
that's what Rosie's
really
did.
would,
Yeah.
that's right.
Because I know 90, or I shouldn't say 90% anymore, because a lot of people have gotten old and either moved or are no longer with us. But in our neighborhood, I know quite a few people that may talk to one person and say, oh yeah, I don't like it. When you hand them something in front of them to sign it, they will not put their name on it,
That's right.
right? They will not. So it doesn't, you know,
Yes,
doesn't hold much water on.
no, you're
Okay.
right.
I make a motion to add another letter regarding our direction to the selectmen.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye?
What I'll do is get this together and, I will email it out to you.
Yep.
Please let me know what you don't like or what you wanna add. I'll redo it and get it back out to you
Yeah.
again, and we'll get it in as soon as possible.
Right, that one doesn't have to go in it, well, it does, so that we know what direction we're going. But
Yes,
the
but-
most important one is the one for even that one, that's just a Sue's thing, but we're finding out more about that anyway.
Yes.
Okay,
This is just an overview of, you
Yeah,
know,
what
what
we
we
have
have
done.
done in
Yeah.
the past. So what I will do is I will add, to the right to farm bylaw here, I will put the insert, addendum A
Yep.
right here, leaving out the once a valid complaint
Yep.
is out. And then, I'll just basically retype it.
Yep.
And get it over to you.
okay,
And please feel free to correct any errors, spelling, that type of thing. I'm a good speller, but sometimes my fingers don't remember that.
okay, on,
I just had to,
you got one more thing?
yes, I do. I
Okay,
have one more thing, and that is to accept the minutes of last week's meeting.
oh, we were supposed to do that at the beginning.
Yes, we were. We were
Okay.
just so excited about the recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, the minutes of last week's meeting, to just go over it again, were, we talked about, how the Newburyport we had an article that we took from the, website about Newbury, the town meeting overwhelmingly approving the right to farm bylaw. We talked about that, then we talked about the actual notification of the bylaw. Then we, went into, the wording that we would like to use if we were going to make a suggestion. And we have a list of things that we discussed at that time, which I'll include with the paperwork. And the last thing we talked about was the fact that we're an advisory board and we don't have any authority to make a decision. And because we're an advisory board, we do not have to abide by the rules and regulations of actual boards and commissions. That was basically what we decided, and we went home with homework and said that we would get together the paperwork and put together a couple of suggestions, and we did, and we discussed that just today. So,
I accept those, minutes, motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Such an agreeable committee.
Okay, now,
So we have to make a recommendation to dismiss.
oh no, we got one more thing.
Oh, we got one more thing. Oh,
Yep, one more.
sorry,
Yep,
yes, okay.
I got one more.
Go
After,
ahead.
after reading this letter that Damon,
Oh, yeah,
that Sue
definitely, yes.
wrote to, the selectmen
Yep.
back in May,
Mm-hmm,
while I was talking with the chief, he had mentioned that Damon and him were working on a nuisance animal addendum to the zoning bylaws or whatever, wherever it goes. And it seems like this is where it came from. The word nuisance is in here, the occasional barking dog or crowing of rooster is not the case here. The nuisance has been going on way too long. So what I'd like for the Agricultural Commission to either write a letter or discuss if this is Damon's project or the whole selectmen,
right,
to not use the word nuisance animal, that it should be nuisance pet. Because somebody can have a pet pot-bellied pig and it is a pet, but somebody else could raise 20 pigs for meat and breeding, and those are farm animals. And if we just put nuisance animal into the bylaw, I think it's gonna roll over into agriculture.
Very good.
I
Yeah.
thought of that myself, I totally agree, yes.
So somewhere along the line, we need that, if this is gonna go forward, this is, I think they're gonna be discussing this at next Tuesday's meeting.
Next Tuesday, okay.
Yeah, so this would be something that, if that's what they're doing, we wanna make sure that the word nuisance animal is not in there, nuisance pet. And that falls back on what we've discussed about a rooster being used for the breeding and raisins of chickens needed, or somebody that just has a pet rooster.
Right. Now, let me just go back and, before we go on, you just said something that rang a bell with me. You said that Mr. Jesperson was going to write something in the bylaws?
I'm not sure where it's going, when I was at the chief, he was sending his recommendations to Damon, which was gonna go through legal to change, I think it is the zoning bylaws of the town already states about nuisance dogs. And they wanna
Okay.
change it to nuisance animals.
Okay, so my question is this. If that's gonna go into the zoning bylaws, it wouldn't need to go into the right to farm bylaw.
That's why we didn't need the word nuisance thrown in there.
Right.
Right, yep, that's why
Right.
if they're gonna do something, we don't wanna tie nuisance and animals going anywhere towards agriculture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We don't wanna defeat something that's good for
Right.
all of us,
Yeah.
just because of one rooster.
Right, and there's a lot of people out there that do have different classified as, just because they're a farm animal, whether it's a goat, sheep, pig, cow, duck,
Yeah,
a llama, it could be a true farm animal used on the farm, or somebody just has one as a pet.
yes,
And that would be considered as a nuisance pet. If we have to be involved to define, well, is that a farm animal or is that a pet? That's what I think the Agricultural Commission should do, or assist the selectmen for somebody that doesn't know that you don't need a rooster to have eggs.
right.
Yeah, there's certain things that you don't need, and it could be just used as a pet.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And as long as the llama, sheep, pig, whatever, wasn't causing
Not-
any
it's not a
problems.
nuisance.
It's not a nuisance.
It's not a
They
nuisance.
can have it.
And I still go back on to, what is the definition of a horse? You're a horse person.
Yes.
I know under, not 60, APR grants. APR grants, unless you're a commercial horse facility,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have horses on that property. I know when Stanley sold the rights down in Raleigh, that I read all the regulations, because we were looking,
Oh,
and
yeah.
recreational horseman is not considered a farming activity. So they are considered recreational
Yes.
animals. They would be, that would be considered not a nuisance animal, it would be considered a nuisance pet.
If they made noise.
If they became a nuisance, that's what I'm saying,
You
that's,
know, the difference is very much like the rooster. If you have a recreational horse facility and you breed a horse and they have a foal,
yeah,
that's considered commercial.
yep, that's,
So that's the difference that it makes. If
the
you
vet
just,
in Raleigh,
Yeah.
Patty knows them. The one on, has the Morgans down there that have been there,
oh, Josh Noble,
Nobles, yeah.
duck worker.
Yeah, yeah, that have been there for 100 years.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
Nobles, they breed horses every
Oh, they
now
do.
and then. Yes, so
Every year.
it gets into the definition, and I know that that's the same as you buy grain in New Hampshire and
Mhm.
shavings in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
If you have a commercial farm or a registered farm, you don't have to pay sales tax, because it's used in the production of whether it's milk, eggs, or anything like that. But if you have one horse on the property, that is recreational, they have to charge you sales tax for the
Isn't that
whole order.
interesting?
So that's even through within the state. If you go to the co-op, I can buy a bag of dairy grain for my goats, and I don't pay sales tax on it. But if I buy a bag of horse feed, I get charged sales tax.
I never knew that.
So
That's so
this gets even to a point of this is somebody complains about manure of a horse farm beside you.
Yeah,
Now, it could get tricky because if it's, is it Peter Paul?
yes.
He don't own the horses, he's boarding the facility. So the manure is at the facility, it's, I would say he has a business license, he's a commercial agricultural, that I think would be considered an agricultural issue if there was a manure problem there. But if somebody just has two horses in their backyard, and all they do is ride them, or they never even ride them, they're just pets, that would be more, if there was an issue, considered a nuisance,
Mm-hmm.
and it would not be a farm issue.
Interesting.
It's, I mean, it's a lot more than a lot of people, think of, but, the more we go into it, it's,
Yeah, we need a clear understanding of that.
yeah,
that was
and I think that would be a thing that if, why I don't wanna see nuisance animals put into anything is nuisance pets, is
Right.
classified as a pet.
Right.
Uh,
I think that's a really nice clarification, John.
It
Okay.
is.
Alrighty, thank you.
Oh, you're
Alrighty,
welcome.
so I make a motion to draft another letter of some type
Mm-hmm.
to suggest that if there is anything going into the town bylaws or laws that state nuisance animals, would not like to see the word animal used, and it should be as nuisance pets.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, so that was my motion, we get a,
I second.
All in favor?
aye,
Motion passed.
okay, I think that's it.
I think that's it. I think that's gonna do a lot to clarify and.
I
Yeah.
think it really will too.
Yeah. If they're not gonna do it, if they're not gonna put a nuisance thing in there, they decided, because I don't know if the chief explained that there wasn't any complaints and all that, so did it get dropped, then we'll readdress and look at what we've gotta do.
Right.
Yeah, on, at least explaining to the selectmen that there is a difference between a nuisance animal and a nuisance pet.
Right.
Yeah, that it's just because it's on a farm doesn't mean that it's,
A farm animal.
yeah,
Oh,
Mm,
yeah,
that's important, I think.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a nuisance animal on my property, a nuisance pet,
yes.
a nuisance pet, and his name is Rosie.
The pony?
No, the skunk that lives under my door. I consider him a nuisance.
Trying to find somebody to take care of them.
I know. I think about it from time to time when they spray
Okay.
the dogs.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I think we just did.
Did we?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
What
the
time
ayes
is it?
have it. It
What time is it?
passes. It's,
3:15.
Very nice. Thank you. Adjourned at 3:15.